going on, everyone? I'm Will Button, and this is DevOps for Developers. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to deploy a React-based web application, also known as a single-page application or an SPA, along with its backend Node.js API on Heroku. Now, this is the exact same application that I deployed in another video where we deployed it onto a standalone Linux server. So that video is not a prerequisite for this video to make sense, but I will link it down below. So if you want to check that out, you can do that as well. And the reason I'm deploying this same app into different environments is because throughout your career, you're not always going to get a choice of where you run your application. Plus, there's some added foundational knowledge that you'll gain by watching and practicing how to deploy to different environments, which just builds your overall experience and helps you make better decisions whenever you encounter those scenarios in the future. Also, stick around to the end because I will be telling you some of the pros and cons and the differences between deploying on a standalone Linux server and what we were able to accomplish, what benefits we got by deploying to Heroku. So be sure and check that out. And yeah, let's just go do this. We're going to deploy the API first, but we need to kind of get it ready to run on Heroku. And it just makes the whole process a little bit smoother if you do it in this order. So the first thing I want to do is add this little block right here in the package.json for the application, specifying the engines that we're using. I want to use Yarn, something from the 1.x family, and then my Node.js I want to run in the 16.x family. And that just tells Heroku whenever it gets ready to launch this, which runtimes to use. The other thing I want to do is our start command here is using PM2, but we're not going to use PM2 in Heroku because we don't need it. So we're going to get rid of that, and we're actually going to use the node command and then run the build index.js. One last thing which was already done for us in this application is written in TypeScript, so it has to be transpiled from TypeScript to JavaScript, which requires a build step. And so we want to make sure in our npm scripts folder here, or npm scripts section, we've got a build command that runs the TypeScript command to convert that from TypeScript to JavaScript, and that's already done for us. But Heroku will look and see that and run this step for us, which is critical because that's how we end up with the build/index.js file here. One other thing I want to do before we do this is add a new file called procfile. And it's just a text file. Stop asking me questions, dude. And so now the proc file is how you tell Heroku how to run your application. And basically these are the processes that it's running. And web is a special process name in Heroku, telling it that this is the web application part of our server. And the web application or the web process type in Heroku is the only one that's allowed to accept inbound HTTP connections. So kind of got to have that, right? So for our web process, we're simply going to put in npm start, which will come back over to package.json and run our start command here, which is node build.js. So I'm going to commit all of that, push it up to my repo, and then we'll jump into Heroku and set it up over there. All right, so I'm logged into my Heroku application now. Obviously, you need a Heroku account to do this. I think you probably figured that on your own. So I'm going to click new here and create a new application, and I'm going to call this AppSeed API. That's available. I'm the owner, doing it in the US. Go ahead and create app. And I'm going to connect this to GitHub. Just let it pull from the repo automatically. So I will search through all of my repos here, and this is the one I want to connect. And so now check this out. It already just connected to it, pulled in the info. We can set up deployments here, tell it which branch to deploy, which I want to deploy from master. So the last thing I want to do, since we just now set this up, I'm going to manually deploy. I'll kick that off, and then we're going to see our deployment steps down here. And just like that, it's done. Well, it kind of took that away from us real quick, but I was going to show you the URL it gave us. So let's go over here to the overview. Somewhere in here, I'm going to find my URL for this. It was on the screen for a second, but now it's gone. But meanwhile, you get to see, here's our deploy section. Here we go. It's under settings, scroll down, under domains, and it deploys it under the herokuapp.com domain. Let's open up a new tab here. And if I recall correctly, we can do the URL and then API/users/testme. And there's a response from our API. So the API is up and running. And I hope you kind of admit with me that that was pretty easy. Not only was it easy, but we're also running under HTTPS. And then let's take a look at our resources. We can change our dyno type here, bump it up to a hobby dyno, save that. And now if we go over to metrics, we're actually getting a dashboard that shows us events. So anytime there's an error or a noteworthy event, like a deploy, that will show up here. On the timeline, we see our memory usage and our response time, throughput, the dyno load, all kinds of cool metrics that just come along with this for free. So one more thing to show you here under deploy. Whenever we push, we set this up to choose a branch to deploy for automatic deploy. So whenever we push to our master branch, Heroku is going to get a notification of that, and it's going to automatically deploy our code. So we kind of get like a little mini version of CD. We don't get the CI, continuous integration part of that, but we do get the CD, continuous deployment of that. All right, so that takes care of deploying our API. Let's deploy the dashboard application now. Just like our API, we need to do a little bit of prep work to get it ready to deploy to Heroku, starting with installing a package called serve. So we're going to do yarn install serve. And that's the wrong command, so we'll do yarn add serve. And we'll run it again, this time with the save flag because I forgot that, which will save it to our package.json file if I'm right. Yep, there we go. So now serve is added as a dependency for our application. And then we have our build command here. So npm run build will run the React scripts build command, which generates our static assets. And let's see, we need a proc file, so we'll do that. Crank that font up so you can see it there. And remember, our proc file runs a special process called web. That's the only process in Heroku that's allowed to accept incoming HTTP connections. And we installed that serve package because that's how we're actually going to serve our application. So we're going to type serve and then give it the name of the folder to listen to, which is our build folder, and then -L, tell it which port to listen on. And I'm going to give it the environment variable port because when you run on Heroku, they dynamically create or dynamically specify which port your application should listen on. and they provide that information to you in the form of an environment variable called port. So we need to use that. And I think that's, we need to go into our config here, and we need to replace the name of our API server with the one from our deployment to Heroku. So let's go into our AppSeed API here. And I think that was under settings. Yes. So we'll copy that, paste that in there. And I think we're ready to commit that. So we'll add our config file, our package.json, and our yarn lock file, because that stores all of our dependencies. Commit message, we'll type prep for Heroku. And commit and push. Boom. All right. So now we'll go back over to Heroku, and we are going to add another Heroku application for our UI. And we will call this Berry UI. Create the app. Integrate it with GitHub. What was the name of that? React Berry. So we'll connect that. Enable automatic deploys, and yeah, let's do it. Let's deploy the branch and see what happens, because I think we're going to be a little excited about this. So while that's installing, let me talk a little bit about using the serve package in Node to serve the application instead of using npm run start or npm start, whatever was configured in there. That runs your TypeScript using tsdev, so it compiles your TypeScript on the fly, which is going to be a performance issue. Using the serve package in npm, we're going to run our build command and generate or transpile our JavaScript or our TypeScript into JavaScript and create those static assets that will then be just served up by the serve package in Node as a static file. Now that's not going to be as performant, I don't think, as using something like Nginx to serve up a static asset, but that's actually going to be okay in our particular scenario. And as soon as we verify that this is working, I'm going to show you why. All right, according to this message here, it is deployed to Heroku at this URL. So we'll paste that in, see if it works. Fingers crossed. Aww. Wah, wah. Maybe I jumped the gun there. Maybe I was just too quick. Let's try it again. No, still didn't work. All right, that's cool, because that gives us a chance to take a look at some of the other cool features of Heroku. For example, did we get any logs? Well, we can add the paper trail log on to Heroku, and there's different paid plans there. I just chose the paid or the free plan, which gives you a decent amount of logs. So we'll throw open the logs, agree to whatever legal verbiage they have. So that's interesting. Web 1 started with the command npm start, which is not what I wanted. That's not what I even told it to do. Did I forget to conclude the proc file? React Berry dashboard. Where's my proc file? That's a problem. Where, oh where is my proc file? Oh, you know what? It's an unversioned file. There we go. Let's do that. Let's add that. I never committed it. And let's push that up to the repo. We'll refresh the page here. There's our proc file. Go to activity. That should trigger a deploy. Look at that. It's deploying automatically. How freaking awesome is that? So the issue there, while this is building again, it ran npm start because that's the default behavior of a Node application, but npm doesn't know anything about the port that Heroku told it to run on, because we didn't build it to take advantage of that, because we weren't going to use it. So npm started, Node started, the application was running, but it was running on its default port, which is probably like 3000, but Heroku had assigned a different port to it that was not 3000. So the deployment was successful, Node was running, but they were not on the same page. All right, so this is looking better. The log output here shows that it has found the proc file and it's declaring the type web, which is accurate. That's good. That's what we wanted to see. And it says it's deployed to Heroku. Let's refresh our page again. Maybe we'll get better. Oh, look at that. Nice. And don't have an account, so let's sign up. Username Will, email Will, password is. All right, doesn't look like it's getting any input from the API. Let's see, let's go to our API and let's go to our paper trail logs here and see if we see anything. Oh, so that looks good. I see the, it looks like we hit the users register thing. Maybe it's just running slow. So it's saying it got a 404 for registering the users, which that doesn't seem to line up with what we've got here, does it? That does. There's a 404 right there. Oh, you know why? Dang it. Because this needs the API on there. All right. We'll commit and push that. And that should kick off another deploy. But since you've already seen 2 deploys up to this point, through the magic of the internet, we're going to skip past that so you don't have to watch that again. All right, so our deployment succeeded. We're going to see if we can create another account here. Spell my name right, that always helps. And then we'll hit sign up. Let's check our logs here. Oh, look at that. That looks nice. It's working. Oh, if we take a look at our logs here, SQLite error, no such table user, which means they're probably using an ORM that builds out our initial database. Let's take a look and see if that's true. Oh yeah, look at this. Run the SQLite migration via type ORM. All right, let's do that. Hadn't planned on showing that to you, but yeah, we're gonna go down that path. Let's see here. Going back to our API. And what we need is shell access. So let's do this. All right, so to run our migration script, we can actually get shell access to our Heroku process using the Heroku command ps exec and then --app followed by the name of our application, which is appseed API. So we'll hit enter there and boom, I've now got a terminal session on my Heroku process. And so we should be able to run our migration command here. Oh, yeah. Well, we can if I just copy and paste the right parts. It's my technical expertise just shining right through. And our migrations are done. And so it says no migrations are pending because I was trying to figure this out and did it while the camera wasn't recording, but here we are. Anyway, this thing's all messed up now. Actually, it's not messed up, it's just lost. So let's try this again. Don't have an account, so we're going to create one. Hit sign up. Hey, it seemed to like that. So let's see if I can log in. And boom, there we go. We're in there. So we've got our React app user interface dashboard deployed, talking to our backend API on Heroku. The only thing that is still left hanging on this is this ugly URL, berry-ui.herokuapp.com. Let's take care of that, right? Okay, before we do that though, let's take a step back here, like a really big step back, and talk about what we've really got going on here in our dashboard application. It's a React app, a web app, a single page application. And so what do all those terms really mean? Well, it means that whenever we do our build process, we're left with an HTML file that does absolutely nothing except say,
hey dude, go look at this JavaScript file.
And then we've got the minified JavaScript files, right? That download to our client's browser and execute inside the browser. So really, the only thing we've done is serve up a couple of static files. So that's kind of why I was saying that whenever we use the npm package serve, that it's really not going to be a big deal performance-wise, because here's what we're going to do next. We're just serving up static files. So let's leverage CDN and let some CDN provider serve those out. The only time we have to worry about that is when we deploy, and then our npm, our node application for the dashboard in our Heroku app is rarely going to get hit. So it's going to have more than enough capacity to serve up the content, feeding it to Cloudflare, which is who we're going to use, and then let Cloudflare deal with the issues of making it performant for everyone using our app. So yeah, does that make sense? I feel like I was rambling there. Let's just go do it then. Maybe that'll make more sense. All right, so let's jump over into my Cloudflare dashboard, and we're going to go into DNS. And I got bumped out, so let's re-authenticate here. Okay, so I just took one of the domain names that I own, opswad.io, and we're going to use that. So we're going to go into DNS, and we've got a www record here. We're going to edit that. I have actually no idea what that's pointing to. Actually, let's just delete it, because we actually need a CNAME record. So we'll grab CNAME, we'll call it www, and then our target, we're going to go back to Heroku, to our UI, under settings, scrolling all the way down, copy link address, go back over here, paste that in. We don't need https:// or the trailing slash at the end. I think that's right. And so now this is going to be proxied through there. And now if DNS has had time to propagate, if we go to www.opswad.io and we hit enter, there's nothing there. And I know why. Let's go over here, and is that under settings, domains, add domain? And we're going to add, I think we need to add the whole thing, opswide.io. And here's our DNS target. So let's edit our record here because we don't actually want to go to this. We want to go to the target that Heroku gave us. Save that. Let's try that again. Boom! Look at that. Should be able to log in here. Sign in, and there's our application. All right, and actually, let me show you this right here. Let me slide this down just a little bit. Look at this. So not only is this running on our own domain now, but we've got SSL as well, and we're leveraging Cloudflare for our caching and our proxying of it so that it's serving up the static assets, which reduces the load on our Heroku application here. And that's all talking to our backend API that is also running on Heroku. And so that was it. And that was actually pretty easy, right? I mean, it was relatively easy, minus a few screw ups on my part, which may or may not be cut out in the video editing process. But it was still a lot faster than building our Node.js application on Linux. This is also scalable. We can go into Heroku and increase the number of dynos if we want to scale up. We've got logging built into that. We've got alerting and monitoring that we can use via Heroku as well. So we'll know if this thing goes down or if we exceed certain thresholds. And as we grow our team, we can just give those team members access to Heroku and allow them to build and deploy on this as well without having to manage a bunch of credentials anywhere. And we also got automatic builds whenever we push to our main branch in GitHub. All of those things we didn't have when we compared this to the exact same installation on our own Linux server, right? Add on to that, we also leverage Cloudflare to take care of our DNS name and our SSL certificates and CDN. So that was all pretty cool, right? But
oh my God, Becky, look at her butt.
There are some downsides to consider with this. This application, we're actually running everything on the free plan for Heroku, and that's pretty performant. But as you grow the use and complexity of your application, you can start to get into some fairly significant costs. For instance, the API server we deployed here is using SQLite on a local file on the container. So as soon as that container starts, the entire database is gone, right? So we would have to add a database to this, which is an add-on available through Heroku. You may remember seeing me add the Papertrail add-on. You can add Postgres, you can add Redis, you can add Memcache. There's just tons of add-ons for Heroku that you just point and click and add them to your Heroku environment, and then they just bill you for it. But that's a great way to get started, but those costs will increase as you get to larger and larger instances because Heroku is really just running on AWS themselves. So they have their AWS costs, and then there's a little bit of a surcharge on top of that to cover the costs of the teams and the tools and the systems that they have to manage this deployed environment for you. Psst, hey, need a database? Come on, man. Mongo, Postgres, MySQL, got it all. Nothing? No? Get the fuck out of here then. The other thing that you may want to consider with this is it doesn't allow us to leverage any of our pre-existing infrastructure. For example, if we already had stuff deployed into AWS or Azure or GCP, we couldn't really leverage those resources without making external calls in there. So that's something to consider as well. But for the most part, this is my go-to recommendation for every client I work with when launching the first version of their app, because it just gets you up and running in a safe, secure, and scalable manner that allows you to put your product in front of your customers quickly and easily and start getting that customer feedback instead of building infrastructure that makes it harder to get your customer feedback. So I mentioned that this is part of a series. We got the first video that I did on Linux, then we deployed the exact same app on Heroku here. Next one I'm going to do is deploying this on Amazon's ECS Fargate, and all of those tie into different DevOps skills. And so if you want, check out the DevOps roadmap for 2022, and you'll find a lot of the skills that we used here in this video listed there. And then you can use that roadmap to understand how they tie to other DevOps skills, and just use that to round out your overall DevOps knowledge, so that as you build and deploy your own applications, you know what the range of possibilities are. And while you may not be an expert in those, you at least know what things exist, which can help guide your learning experience to doing the right things. So be sure and subscribe if you hadn't, because I'll be releasing that AWS Fargate video soon, and I'll see you in the next video.